We're gonna be starting with my personal top 10 dream unmatched IPs that I would like to see in the game. Now, if you've played Unmatched, especially for a while, you know, at some point, there's a thought that pops into your head where you might be watching like a TV show, or you might be reminiscing about, you know, some of your favorite characters and everything. You may be thinking of like back to your childhood, and you have that thought of like, I wonder what this character would look like for Unmatched, or this character should be in Unmatched. And with, you know, different IPs that have been covered, we have Jurassic Park, Buffy, and the new Marvel stuff that's coming out, which is exciting. I figured there's Restoration is going to be going through some more IPs in the future. Why not make a list of my personal dream IPs that I would personally like to see? Now, again, this is my personal list here. Obviously, it's very subjective. But yeah, the other thing is I'm not normally, when I think of Unmatched, I normally am not a huge IP type of person. You know, most of the IPs currently, they don't necessarily grab me, even though I love the mechanics and whatnot. I prefer the public domain stuff, but these are the sets, you know, when I was thinking of them, these are probably the sets that I would pick up and be like, yes, this is something I would actively want in Unmatched. I would be hyped up about. And before I go into the actual top 10, a couple of honorable mentions, because I know some people would be sad to see these IPs not make the list, but they were in the honorable mentions. We have Lord of the Rings or Middle Earth, DC, and Transformers. And thinking back to one of the games, the Epic Duels games, there was a Transformer that played off that system before Unmatched. And so I had originally put that in the top 10. It dropped down due to what is currently in the top 10. So those are my honorable mentions: Transformers, DC, and then the Middle Earth franchise. But let's get into my personal top 10. So my number 10 it's a fairly iconic video game character from the PlayStation franchise, specifically in the earlier days of PlayStation when it was under Sony, and now it's a little bit, you know, he's appeared in multiple different, you know, on systems, and he's a little bit more widespread. This is Crash Bandicoot. This is one of my favorite childhood video game mascots, and so I for each of these sets, I have even created a couple of sets, or for each of these IPs, I should say, I've created a couple of sets on what I would love to see. And so with this one, I thought you could divide it into like a good versus evil set. You have, you know, Crash with Polar, Coco with Pura, and they could be playing similar, but they could have like Coco could be someone who relies a little bit more on the technology, whereas Crash is just, you know, he's a little bit more wild and everything. You have Crunch, and then Tana would round it out for the good set. And you can even use Tana's recent design with the grappling hook and all these different things for her design there. And then for the bad set, which would be my personal favorite, I love the villains in Crash Bandicoot. We have Cortex with his workers, N. Gin with a rival mech suit. I know Rosie the Riveter, who's coming up in Unmatched, has a mech suit, and so you want to make it still unique, but I think if you had N. Gin with something that he can ride in and like move around, that'd be very cool. You can have Tiny and Dingodile as like a duo character. You have Tiny, who's up close and personal, and Dingodile ranged with his I'm forgetting the word, the fire rocket launcher thingamajig. It's not a rocket launcher. Flamethrower, of course. And then finally, you can do something with Entropy and have kind of like a neat time mechanic. So maybe utilizing, you know, saving some cards for the future, but taking some cards back. You know, playing around with some sort of like time mechanic. And so this is a fun, lighthearted IP that I think would fit into an environment where you're just smacking each other around with crazy abilities. And so that is my number 10. And I mean, as people are mentioning in the chat, I know there's a lot of potential for even just a PlayStation classic set. You have Sly, Jak and Daxter, Spyro, Crash, Ratchet and Clank, all these things. But for myself personally, I've never gotten into any of the other games. Spyro was the closest, but Crash Bandicoot by himself is one that's close to my heart, and so that's why it's number 10. Number 9. is one that I often see on, on the Discord at Restoration Games there. And this is one that's another, it's a cartoon classic. And this is, I'll just say it right away, this is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And so this is a highly recommended IP that we've seen that could fit very well into the universe Unmatched. Avatar also is a close one. I'm not very, I think it would be a neat IP, but I'm not really I've never gotten into Avatar. I need to check it out sometime. But for this one, you could have a one pack where it's just the 4 turtles, or you can even have a special thing where the turtles are all fighting as one fighter. It'd be neat to kind of play around some of that, but I probably would prefer each of the 4 turtles in their own individual, fighting styles and everything. You can have the classic villains, Shredder and the Foot Clan. You have Bebop and Rocksteady. You have Baxter Stockman and Karai. And then you could even have one set for the allies or for other heroes in there, like Splinter. You can have April and Casey. The last 2, I'm not sure if they're actually allies because I haven't. It's been a while since I've seen it. But you have something like Mondo Gecko and Mutagen Man. There's a couple different, really unique characters that I think could fit really well into the universe of Unmatched. And you could even use the art style that's similar to the comic book. I used to own a TMNT version of Munchkin, where they had this comic book style for the deluxe version, and I really enjoyed that art style. So Tater Tot. Oh, you could also do what Tater Tots has mentioned. One 4-pack, you have 2 turtles, 2 villains, and then do another one with two. Having mixed there, and I think that would almost be a nice way to split it up. But yeah, that'd be. I feel if you were to do Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, it would have to have that gritty art style. I think that would be a really neat way to play around with it. Perfect. So that's going to be my number 9, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Going on to my number 8, this is an IP that spawned the Unmatched system. The game that Unmatched came from, this is that IP, this is Star Wars. And so I would love this one, the Star Wars IP, to be, I would almost like it to be the last IP that Restoration does. I think this would be a major callback to where it all started. For those who may be watching and are not familiar, Unmatched actually came from a previous game called Star Wars Epic Duels. And so just as much as it started with that core system there, and it kind of got re-implemented, I would love to see Restoration have their take of those characters and a couple more into the new Star Wars system. And so you can have it as a final IP, kind of bookend the entire series in a wonderful way. I even had it, I went through, I'm not going to go through each of like the individual mechanics, what I would love to see, but for the sets, I split it up into 2 sets of 3 for each of these series. So you have a light set and a dark set. And so with the original series, I had Luke with R2-D2, Leia with Rebel Soldiers, and then you have the duo of Han Solo and Chewbacca. And then for the dark side, Darth Vader with Stormtroopers, Grand Moff Tarkin and his Death Star Troopers. And then you could have Boba Fett with another bounty hunter, maybe Greedo or Bosk. I would probably love to see Bosk in that set. Then going to the prequels, Anakin with Padme, Obi-Wan with clones. You can have Yoda by himself, and then on the evil side, Count Dooku with his super battle droids, Darth Maul by himself, and General Grievous with the droids. And then of course the sequel, the ones that was not in the original game. We have Rey with BB-8, Poe with the Resistance fighters, and then Finn with Rose, and then Emperor Palpatine by himself, Supreme Leader Snoke with the Royal Guards, Kylo Ren with Captain Phasma. And then I have one, I did put some as extras. I had for the extras, just kind of picking from different places. The good side I have is Ahsoka Tano with Rex, the Mandalorian with Baby Yoda, and Jyn Erso with either Cassian Andor or another friend. And then for the evil side, we had Asajj Ventress, Cad Bane with Aurra Sing, and then Admiral Thrawn. I know a lot of people in chat are saying no Mace Windu. I personally never understood the hype with Mace Windu, and definitely no Jar Jar Binks. We can go without Jar Jar. I'd be fine with that. But this would be an epic way to kind of end the series with a bang, and I think many people who enjoyed the original game would flock to get their hands on it, and even more who just like the IP and have never gotten into a match would be it'd be interesting to see them get into this game as well. And I think it would bring more people into the game in a major way You have this as an end. Maybe this would be one where you could shift the meta in a major way. I think the one big thing is there's just so many characters to work with. We talked about like Mace Windu, Jar Jar, Lando Calrissian. I would love to have a Lando Calrissian character. I think it's hard to pick, and I limited it to 3 fighters for each pack. You could easily add a 4th one for each of them and add whoever you would like, but there's already so much to work with, and I think you could have a lot of fun with this. And yeah, I think if you specifically put it at the very end of when this is all said and done, I think that would be a fantastic way to just end it with a bang. So that's going to be Star Wars. My number 7 is I grew up playing a lot of real-time strategy games as a kid, and this game specifically was at the top of my list. This is a very set in a fantasy world. This is one that the game itself, it was, even though it was an RTS, it relied a lot on specific heroes. And so for myself, you can make these sets based on those heroes, and this is going to be Warcraft. So Warcraft being a hero-focused real-time strategy game, you could have 4 sets each. In the original game, you had 4 different races, and each of those races had 4 different heroes that came with all of them. And so with each of the 4 sets, you could have 4 different heroes, and each set would have 1 hero from each race. So with the first set, I had Jaina, Anubarak, Samuro, and Malfurion. You could have some fun with I think that's a lot of, Jaina with casting magic, Anubarak having his beetles, Samuro being up close and utilizing his illusions to try and trick you, and Malfurion using some Ents. For the second set, I had Thrall being able to lead the orcs, Uther, who can play a little bit of a support role and do some healing in his deck, but can still hit hard with his hammer. You have Kel'Thuzad and Tyrande, who is leading her archers into battle. You have Illidan, who's again just a very quick mover, moving around. Muradin, who's a hard hitter, a very hard, heavy tank. Sylvanas, who is, again, kind of shifting in the shadows, and Rexark controlling his beasts. And then, of course, you have Arthas for the 4th set. Arthas, Kael Thas, who's I think he was the Blood Mage? Yeah, I think who is able to control fire and everything. Cairn Bloodhoof, leader of the Tauren. He's the Tauren chieftain. And then Maiev, who's trying to trap other people. You could kind of play around with that. So each of the characters would fit the vibe of Unmatched and have an incredible look with the art. I think there's a lot to work with each of the individual characters and their abilities. This would be a goldmine of an IP. There's even other heroes like Lady Vash, Mal'Ganis, any of the Warcraft 2 heroes even you could probably incorporate in there. But yeah, this would be a fun one. I think there's a lot that you could do with their special abilities, and there's a lot of lore behind all of that. So you could really make a case for Warcraft. My number 7. Number 6. Now, this is a little bit of this is a very niche pick. And I had thought about putting Disney specifically in general. I would love to see representation from Disney overall. I think there's lots you can do. But I have a specific special place in my heart. And I thought I would give 1 slot to being like my out of left field pick. And this is that pick. This is specifically Atlantis: The Lost Empire. A little bit of a cheesy one here, but you could have like 1 4-pack or a 5-pack or something like that, where you play as the Atlantis characters. And again, this is completely a personal like something that I would love to see. It's never going to happen. But you can have Milo, who kind of plays like a mix between like a Sherlock or Sinbad, as he, someone who deals with, different languages. He's a very scrappy fighter. You can have Audrey with Squeet, Audrey being someone who uses her tools and creates her own weapons, and Squeet as a doctor can be a support. I had Vinny and Mole kind of as a duo character, where you have Vinny planting and utilizing explosives while Mole digs up and can pop in different places. So you can play a little bit with the positioning game there. And of course, I have Kita with the guards using their advanced technology to attack enemies from afar. Has great mobility, sort of like Yanenga, but I'd want it to be obviously a little bit different. And when I say a character like Sherlock, I would hope that it's a Sherlock esque character that's actually balanced. So this is my favorite Disney franchise. Spoilers for when I get to my inevitable Disney franchise list way out there. And I wish it gets more representation, so I thought, you know what? It's gonna fit right here. I would love to see Atlantis the Lost Empire specifically in Unmatched. So that's going to make it for, that's gonna end the bottom half of my top 10 here. So number 5, I had thought about adding another niche pick. And that niche pick was Mario RPG Legend of the Seven Stars. But with this specific IP, this one utilizes the Mario characters, and it's one that I want I want just as much as Mario RPG, and it's more realistic and fun to think about. So instead, I'm giving the nod to Super Smash Brothers. So with the Super Smash Bros. Franchise, again, there's so many heroes that you can take a look at, that you can delve into. I limited it to what it 1, 2, 3. I limited it to 5 sets of 4, so 20 characters, or 20 heroes, I should say. The first two are the classics. You have Mario, and you can choose. I had it where you could choose between Peach or Luigi. Have Peach as a support character, Luigi as kind of another copy to deal more damage there. We have Link with Zelda. You could even make that a duo fighter. You have Samus, and then Kirby as the last one, who can copy abilities and utilize some of those. And I think that would be a really good first pack. And then, of course, the second pack to continue with some of the classics. You have Fox with either just Falco, or you could even have the entire Star Fox team. I think that would be pretty neat. You have Pikachu. You have Ness with one of his friends. I've never really played. Okay, I've only played like the first 10 minutes of Earthbound. I've never actually played fully to know the roster there. But you could have Ness with some sort of friend, and then of course Donkey Kong with Diddy Kong. So that would round out the first 2 hero boxes. You can have a villains box to go with it. So of course, classic villains to coincide with those heroes. I had Bowser. You could utilize a fire breathing mechanic, or he's someone who likes to be in your face, hits hard. You could do something with that. Ridley, who's like flying around, being able to kind of drop down and hit hard and then retreat quickly. Ganondorf, who I believe, again, anyone who's played Legend of Zelda, if I get this wrong, you might have to forgive me, but I believe he can like transform into different forms, correct? And so you could maybe even utilize some of that. Even so, you could just even play off that idea that him being a tank and everything. And then King K. Rool, who is throwing projectiles and doing all sorts of things and causing all sorts of shenanigans as well. So those are the villains: Bowser, Ridley, Ganondorf, and King K. Rool. And then I have 2 more sets that I put together. I had one which was more of like an oddball set, kind of like, these are important characters in the Nintendo IP, but they're not as thought about. I had Olimar with Pikmin, Robin with Chrom. You can kind of play off of the mechanics there. Robin being a ranged fighter and Chrom kind of moving in. They play off of each other. Ice Climbers as a duo hero. And then just to put it in there, Wii Fit Trainer. I would love to see Wii Fit Trainer and everything. Going back to Olimar, you could even throw the Pikmin and have the Pikmin attached. I even have a fan-made deck of Olimar where you have that mechanic where you're throwing these Pikmin, and if they manage to win the combat, they stay attached to your character and will deal damage based off how much Pikmin is on the character. I would love to see something like that. And then last but not least, we have the third-party characters. I have Sonic going super fast. We have Pac-Man, Cloud, and Ryu. And of course, you could probably add some extra fighters in there. Maybe Sonic has Tails with him. Maybe Cloud has another Final Fantasy VII character. So many characters to choose from, and they all have different unique abilities and mechanics. And so I personally compare this game to Smash a lot. So I'm might as well throw in the Smash cast of characters also. I think you could do so much with that. But that is going to be Smash Bros. My number 5. My number 4 is another video game IP, and they actually released They released a platform fighter similar to Smash, but this was their own sort of thing in the mixed with a collection of other platforming games, and this is Shovel Knight. And so here you can have again 4 sets of 3 with the 4 main protagonists of the treasure trove games that we're playing. So set 1, I didn't actually divide these into specific sets. I just you have set 1 with Shovel Knight and Shield Knight together. Set 2 with Plague Knight with either Mona or Percy. Set 3 with Spectre Knight, and maybe he could have Raze as a sidekick. And set 4 with King Knight with different gold armors here. But then you can also add in different characters like the Enchantress. She could even have some Liquid Samurai. You have Black Knight, Mole Knight, Tinker Knight, Polar Knight, Propeller Knight, Treasure Knight. You have Mr. Hat with his different, switching it up. And so each of these other knights could be solo, or you could team up with iconic minions or with other knights in general. And so you have a very fun, diverse cast. And I know this specific IP has been used in Exceed, which is another skirmish game that I would actually really like to try as well. But I would be curious as to how Restoration would utilize this IP. And even though it's a relatively smaller IP, I think there's a good amount of lore and content to build something for each character here. So that's going to be my number 4, Shovel Knight. My number 3. This is one of the more interesting ideas for an IP, and I would love to see. It's been talked about a little bit here and there in the Discord, but I would love to see other board games as an IP for Unmatched. And so I mentioned before about Smash and how this is, with it being an apt comparison. And so if Smash is a celebration of video games, why not have a celebration of board games? And so I had one specific like set plan, but then a bunch of characters off to the side. So the set I had planned was like a classic set. You can have Mr. Monopoly from Monopoly, obviously, Miss Scarlet as Clue from Clue. You could have King Candy from Candyland, and then I threw in the robber from Catan as well. But you can have a bunch of other characters. Tater Tots already in the chat had said Gloomhaven. You could totally add characters from there. You had someone from King of Tokyo. You could add a faction from Root, or like I specifically put in the Eerie faction. You could have like an Eerie leader and the extra warriors, and they have to do a bit of programming with the Unmatched system. You could have the panda from Takinoko. I had someone mention Scythe characters. I specifically had Olga and Changa from Scythe. Again, I haven't played it, but I know those are very influential people. You can have the Chancellor from Oath. You could have Rhino Hero. You could have some sort of Atlantis Rising character. You can have a Gamelin Knight. You could do like a werewolf from the game Werewolf. I had a bird enthusiast with birds as sidekicks from Wingspan. Like, there's so much you can do. Barbarian from Hero Quest. The princess from Love Letter. So like, there's a lot that you could do. You could even do a neat create your own character for an RPG type of game, where it's not necessarily like a fan deck, but it's like a simple deck that you can like slightly alter to customize the stats and maybe some attacks or defenses. So I think there's a lot of room for other board game IPs just in general to make this kind of like a Smash, like the board game version of Smash. And so yeah, that's going to be number 3, just board game IPs in general. So number 2, we are down to my top 2 here. And this is another IP that's been used in a different skirmish game that's actually coming out a little bit later here. And this is going to be from the skirmish game, or the skirmish system is the Mayhem system. And so with that, the IP that I'm talking about is Looney Tunes. And so you could even use the same characters that are used in the Mayhem sets, although there are some characters that I feel like weren't included in that game that I would like to see added. As a side note, I actually bought the Mayhem system. I'm really interested in trying that out. It definitely looks like a lighter weight game, but I'm very curious as to seeing how it compares as a skirmish game. I don't actually know how it plays, but yeah. Anyways, going back to the characters, we have Bugs Bunny with Lola as like a duo sidekick, or you can even have Lola as as a dual hero, or you can have Lola as a sidekick. You have Daffy Duck with Tina Russo as a sidekick, calling back to the Looney Tunes show, which is one of my favorite shows. You have Elmer Fudd, Tasmanian Devil, who can be just kind of roaming around causing all sorts of chaos. You have Marvin with either the Space Minions or K9. You can kind of choose between either of those. You can have Yosemite Sam. My personal favorite. You can have, as mentioned in the chat, Gossamer for Unmatched. You can have them paired with Witch Hazel. That's another one that I didn't have, but I should have thought of that. One that I did think of that's very interesting is having Granny as the hero, and then Tweety and Sylvester as a sidekick. And so while you're somehow going about all of the, you know, as Granny's somehow battling all these legends of King Arthur, she also has to, you know, deal with Tweety and Sylvester kind of battling each other. I would think that would be a really neat system. But then you have other fighters there: Porky, Pepe Le Pew and Penelope, Foghorn Leghorn, Roadrunner, Wile E. Coyote. And so Looney Tunes just naturally fits the Unmatched idea, where there's already lots of wacky interactions between characters as they hit each other with anvils and hammers, blowing each other up with acme crates and dynamite. There's already lots of crazy antics within just that universe, and adding that to this game, I feel, would just be a natural crossover. And so let's see Looney Tunes. I would love to see where that goes there. And now we've reached my #1 game, and if you know me somewhat well, if you've been in the Discord, you know that I have a fond place in my heart for this. I've made fan decks of characters from this IP. And this is, yeah, I'll just say it's Kingdom Hearts. You could even have this as a box mechanic where Keyblade wielders can be both melee and ranged based depending on the attacks that they have, depending if they're using magic or physical attacks. And so with this one, I had 4 3-packs based off of different trios. You have the original trio, Sora with Donald and Goofy. You have Riku with Mickey, and then you have Kairi. I don't know what she would do specifically, but you could have Kairi doing something there as well. Maybe for her, it's this idea of growth. Sora could be based off of that friendship thing, and Riku is overcoming the darkness. For the second pack, you could have the trio from 365 over 2 days with Roxas. You can have Axel with an organization member, kind of playing off the tension there. And then Xion with Naminé could even be a dual fighter where Naminé's, you know, impacting how Xion acts. And then, of course, my personal favorite, what I would probably want to see the most, is the Wayfinder trio from Birth by Sleep with Aqua, Terra, and Ventus. And then the last pack I had were the villains of the series. You could have Ansem with the Heartless, Xemnas with the Nobodies, and Xehanort with Vanitas. And so with this IP, along with having the potential of just having gorgeous art, I think there's lots to work with. Even though there's a lot of Keyblade wielders, there are plenty of ways to utilize their different fighting styles or showcasing different mechanics of each game. Oftentimes there's lots of different mechanics in each of the Kingdom Hearts games. So even with, let's say with the Birth by Sleep characters, you have Aqua, who's a magic user, but she also focuses on the limit gauges. I don't think, yeah, is limit gauges in there? That doesn't matter. You could have Terra focusing on equipping certain things in his deck, and he's a heavy hitter, and Ventus is a fast-paced character. And just there's a lot of different ways you could go about it. And so that's going to be my #1. My absolute favorite IP, Kingdom Hearts. It is a little bit hard to do without, like if you're paying for the IP with King Mickey, there's a bit of a leap there, or it would be tough to make it happen. But I would love to see it happen, even if it's just Kingdom Hearts original characters. I would be happy with that. So that is my top 10 IP list. Taylor Tots, where's Lord of the Rings? It was an honorable mention. I placed, it was so going through all of it, my honorable mentions were Lord of the Rings / Middle Earth, DC, and Transformers. And then going through all 10, we have number 10, Crash Bandicoot, number 9, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, number 8, Star Wars, 7, Warcraft, specifically the Warcraft 3 series, number 6, my niche pick, Atlantis the Lost Empire, number 5, Super Smash Bros., 4, Shovel Knight, 3, other board game IPs, 2, Looney Tunes, and my top 1 is Kingdom Hearts. So that is going to be it for that video. If you're this will be on YouTube, so if you're watching on YouTube, feel free to comment down below there.